Okay, so this little clip is going to go over some basic concepts on how to analyze the graph once you have it, right? So if you remember our first graph where we talked about position and time, we have time on our x-axis, position on our y-axis, and so now we need to do some things with analyzing this graph and using this graph to figure out some additional information. So let's look at some questions. If we were to ask, based on the graph, what would the position of the car be after 17.5 minutes? This is how we would do that. So again, anytime a question asks you based on the graph, you have to show it in the graph, right? So first thing it said, based on the graph, what would be the position of the car after 17.5 minutes? Well, we need to find 17.5 minutes on our graph. So if this is between 15 and 20, halfway between 15 and 20, this right here would be 17.5 minutes. So in order to figure out what the position of the car would be after 17.5 minutes, we would locate 17.5, follow that line, and you would use a ruler going all the way up to our trend line, right? And once we hit the trend line, then we would, so this is going in this direction, then we would go across to our y-axis from where it hit the trend line, right, going in this direction, and wherever it hits the y-axis, that will be our position. So again, we might have to estimate that. So our answer with that, we would say for question 1, it would be approximately let's say 51 meters, right? Approximately 51 meters. So that's how we would answer that question. On the second question, which says, based on the graph again, how long would it take for the car to reach 80 meters? So based on the graph, how long would it take for the car to reach 80 meters? So we know we're getting to 80 meters, but if we look at 80 meters here, our graph trend line is not long enough to show us 80 meters. So what we would have to do using a ruler is we would extend our trend line, right, using a hash mark so that it goes beyond 80 meters, and then we would come back and do the same thing. Find 80 meters, come across where it says 80 meters, so we're going in this direction, right, where it hits our trend line, then we would go down. So now, and again, you would use a ruler, so yours would be more accurate than mine. So coming down here, and then wherever it hits the x-axis, so that's about 26. So for question 2, we would say approximately 27 minutes would be the answer for number 2. And so that's how we use the graph to determine and answer questions concerning the graph, right? We can extend our trend line and find out other information, or we can find information within the graph. And this also works for curved lines. So I know this was a straight line graph, but if we had a curved line, if you remember our percent transmittance graph, right? If we had a curved line pattern, right, it's the same thing. Wherever we go up and wherever it hits that graph, we can go across and do the same thing. So this is analyzing the graph and using the graph to answer questions. Let me know if you have any questions, or was there anything about this that you did not understand. Thanks.